Hi, everyone, and welcome to the One Podcast. I am excited about today's guest. We met in a mentoring group with the same woman, so I've had a chance to get to know her through some of our calls together. And I feel her story is going to be very applicable when you're making life changes and leading yourself through that. So, here is a good friend of mine and fellow learner in life, Tatiana
Mm.
Quaife. And I would love for you to jump in and tell a little bit about your background. So you're from Brazil and you were in corporate, but I want you to talk about how you got to where you were and then when you made your big life change, and then we'll go from there to where you're at now. Whatever you feel is important to share.
Sounds great. And thank you, Lisa, so much for having me here. I'm so excited to share more about my story and to have this beautiful conversation. So, yeah, a little bit about me. I grew up in Brazil and was there until I was 18 and decided to move to the US all by myself to go into college. And what fueled that dream was a little story of me as a little girl. I remember my dad was an entrepreneur and he would come home with his business briefcase. And I remember as a little girl, I would carry the briefcase around the house wearing my mom's high heels, pretending I was going to work. So that was the pretend play dream that I had when I was a little girl. And the amazing thing is, even though I would say Brazil is a fairly patriarchal country, like my dad believed in me. He thought the world was going to be led by women one day.
Oh,
So basically coached me up to be a little leader in the making since I
oh, I
was
love
a
that.
little girl. Yes, it was
Oh,
a gift. And I remember there was this business magazine in Brazil, and every time there was a woman in the cover or a story about a successful woman, he would make a point to come and show it to me. Look, here it is. Like, you can do this too. From a young age, I had a feeling I was a leader. I had this feeling I was here for something big. And at the time, being a successful executive at a big company became the dream. So a lot of the decisions that I made, even as a teenager, and all of that was in a way leading to that. That's why I decided to move to the US to go to college because I thought that was a path, to get into great schools and great companies and start my career. So as a young, determined, driven girl, like our type A high achiever,
yeah.
I got into business school. I started my corporate career in some of the best companies and brands in the world. First, I worked at Procter and Gamble because I wanted to learn marketing from the best. They created marketing, they created brand management. So I want to learn. I want to learn from the best. And I was very grateful for my time there, but it was a very intense, competitive, like environment. And I, around that time, had a health scare.
Oh,
I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer, and I was fairly young. I was like
wow.
31, and
Wow.
it shook me to my core. I was not expecting, Ray, to hear that from the doctor. And even back then, it woke me up, but it also gave me a sense of meaning. This is happening to me, for me somehow. What is the gift in this? What is the lesson? And for me, it was a major redirection. Because of that, I started my journey into mindset and the power of mind and yoga. It really changed my trajectory, changed my life. I still wanted to stay in corporate at this time, but I wanted to work at a company, at a brand that I felt more passionate about. At the time my daughter was 3, I took
Oh,
her to
yeah.
Disney because I grew up going to Disney.
Oh.
And when I saw Disney through her lens, I'm like, that's it. I want to work at Disney. But I didn't know anybody. They didn't recruit in my school or anything
Yeah.
like that. So I basically, during the vacation, went on LinkedIn and started to network my way into the company. Eventually, a role opened up and we moved to join Disney in Florida. And I was there for 6 years. I thought this is my dream. I
Mhm.
wanted to retire there. This is it. And eventually became an executive. So I was living the dream.
Yeah.
The young version of me was dreaming about this. And, here I was. And I feel like around 2020, with COVID, with my dad had a big health scare, I feel like I was initiated in a deeper journey of midlife awakening, a spiritual transformation. And it took me down a different path. I still stayed in corporate for a little while, but it was releasing a lot of the identities, a lot of the beliefs that I had, and like reconnecting with, okay, no, who am I? Why am I here?
Right.
What is the bigger mission? So it just started a journey of transformation, personal transformation, professional transformation, and spiritual transformation too.
Okay, so going back, I love so many nuggets on this. Number one, back in your childhood, I think for anyone who is a parent that comes across this, whether you're listening or you actually see this on YouTube, I think that is so brilliant that your father had the wisdom to actually show you magazines with a woman on the cover, to really encourage that. I think any mother or any father to be able to point out what's possible, because a lot of times I'm not a parent, but most of my friends are. And it's like you have a dream and a vision of what you want your child to be. But when they're speaking their dreams, to be able to foster that and reinforce from such a young age that it's possible, I could just see the vision of that. And I loved it. And then I
Oh,
wanted to ask, still backwards in that history, how were your parents feeling when you decided at 18, okay, your dad's fostered this dream, he believes in you, and then you're like, okay, I'm heading to the US. I'm so
yeah.
young. I'm sure he was supportive, but how was that for your parents to take off?
Yes, yes. It's actually an interesting story too, because my parents, especially my dad, was actually fairly strict when I was growing up in
Mhm.
terms of where I could go and when I could go and with who and all of these things. So it was a very tight,
Yeah.
like I'd say strict parenting upbringing that I was raised with. And at the time, at first, I thought I wanted to get into this one school in Brazil that was the best business school out there. And I prepared myself like crazy for 3 or 4 years to actually take this exam because you have to take this one exam. And if
Wow.
you get in, you get into this one school. So, anyway, I was so nervous about getting into this school that I actually developed like canker sores all over my mouth. I couldn't even eat. My parents had to take me to like the ER to get like IV on
Oh
my.
no.
So knowing what I know now about mindset and all of that,
Yeah.
needless to say, I didn't get into this school. I thought my world was over. It was
Yep.
this huge public failure. Everybody knew about it. And I actually remember I was devastated. My mom decided to take me to the beach because it was my happy place. At the time, one of my best friends, who was already, I don't know, starting his own evolution, gave me a book to read. It was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. He's actually a Brazilian author.
Hmm.
And that book changed my life. It reconnected to my heart, to my dreams, to my desires. And at the beach, I had the thought, you know what? I've always actually wanted to go to the US for school. I just thought it was going to be later for like my
Yeah.
MBA. And I'm like, what if I went now? And so this spark of like dream and desire like
Oh,
turned within me. And I did worry. I don't know if my dad's gonna let me go because he was so strict, you know?
yeah.
And I remember it was actually really profound when I had the conversation with him.
Hmm.
He's like, yes, absolutely. And I was surprised. I remember I was actually a little confused. And he said, I have taught you everything that I could. And now
Hmm.
it's your time. You get to spread your wings. You get to go and live your life. I've given you everything that I had to give, you know, and I get emotional just thinking about it because I got to carry that belief
Yeah.
with me, even as I decided to make a move that felt so radical and different from like how I
Yeah.
had been up until that moment. So,
That is such a wise human being and humble to be able to say, I've given you everything I can up to this point, and go. I love that. Oh, I love your dad. So then you head to the US, you start in corporate, you end up at these big, big, wonderful companies. Because of your daughter, you all of a sudden decide it's Disney. And then you act so quickly. You're like, okay, I'm going to network my way there. And it happens. And then you get there, you go to Disney, you move your family to Florida. and you're there and you're in it. And so, where is it that you start? Oh, I loved that you referenced it and called it the midlife awakening. Hello, not midlife crisis, everyone. Midlife awakening. What was it, a level of like dissatisfaction? Was it little, what was the intuitive nudge for you that this may not be forever?
Yes,
Talk
yes.
about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I joined Disney. This is like my dream. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm here. And I grew very fast at the company to an executive level really, really quick. So things were going well in terms of the external aspects, the title, the promotions, like the money was getting better.
It looks like
All of the things that honestly is what I thought I wanted, And deep down, there was this realization of I was always chasing what was next. I remember vividly when I became a director at Disney. Again, this was my dream, right? So it was a surprise. They basically created a role and surprised me with this promotion. I was crying. My vice president pulled me to her office, told me I'm like crying. I'm crying with her. I'm hugging her. Oh my God. I ran into my office and immediately called my husband and I called my parents because I wanted to share
yeah.
like we've created this together. This has
Yeah.
been my dream, our dream for my whole life. And you would think that at that point I would have been like content or and I was so happy. I was so fulfilled. I was so proud for a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if it was even like months, maybe weeks. I was like, okay, when I'm becoming a VP, when I'm becoming it was never enough. I always thought it was like when I get this title, when I make this money, when, if, blah, 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 I would be happy, content, fulfilled. And I was like, oh my goodness, this isn't it. This isn't the answer. I'm still coming from a place of lack, of proving, of achieving, and it's circumstantial and it fleets away.
Yeah.
And I'm like in the hamster wheel, like again. And I think what the wake up happened when my dad got sick and he was in the hospital for almost a month. And I was like, I don't care about work. Like, my leaders were very like understanding and supportive. They're like, you take your time. So I was basically like in the hospital the whole time.
Oh, good.
And I wanted to be the most present, loving, and like the best version of me in that moment
Yes.
as I could.
Yes.
So I somehow got into reading spiritual books. Like I remember being in the hospital and reading The Power of Now, The New
Mm.
Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and some Gabby Bernstein books. And as I'm in the hospital, I'm like diving like crazy into my own spiritual growth because I wanted to find meaning in that experience and honestly make peace with the fact that if my dad did pass away, that I could be okay.
Yes.
When I started to pour myself into that, like things just started to shift very quickly. And when COVID happened, which was only a few months after this experience, I had already been doing a lot of inner work about mindset, power of mind, plus spiritual things that I was learning. I started to share and talk about how those tools, those practices were supporting me to navigate through the uncertainty and chaos that we were all experiencing early on in COVID, both at Disney, where I was at the time, but also like on LinkedIn. I started publishing every day something on LinkedIn just to support people. And the feedback was really positive. Wow, I love this. Share more. Do you speak? Do you coach? I'm like, sure.
Do. Yes. Yes, I do. Starting now.
So I'm just gonna go with this. And the more that I was doing, the more I was loving, the more I felt like I'm making an impact. I'm creating like this lasting, I can see people transform in front of my eyes. I can see the light, the activation. So how can I do more of that? Eventually, my path started to just grow a different way from what I thought it was gonna look like. And because of that, it actually then initiated a whole new slew of transformations around identity And because I thought this was my dream the whole time, then what is? If not this, then what? So I went into the void, the in between of the metamorphosis, it's okay. Like I've been the caterpillar. There's something else. I can't see the butterfly. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to lean into this like metamorphosis. I'm going to go into this cocoon and allow
Yes.
myself to be rebirthed. And I actually call this journey the midlife ascension because I don't think it's a crisis. It's not a midlife crisis. It's this calling, this initiation, this invitation for us to release, to let go the conditioning, the programming, the shoulds, and really reconnect with who we are and why we're here so we can rise into that.
I love that. And I use that example about the caterpillar and the butterfly because I think for people who don't understand or haven't heard the void, it's when you know you're no longer the person you've been, but you're not quite sure the person that you're becoming. And a lot of times in that space between the two, which we both call the void, that can be very challenging, very confusing, very challenging. For some, it can be exciting, but that's where you really do dive inwards into, okay, I don't even have the answers yet. I just have a knowing that I am no longer content, satisfied, fulfilled, peaceful, joyful where I am. So I'm going to start trusting that I'm headed in the direction of something else. And some of us have that dream of what we're going to become, and we have a feeling that keeps us going, and then others of us, it's I still don't know, I just know go this path. And so I love that you brought that up. And I had said I've been through numerous transformations, but there was even a period last year where when I was describing what I was going through, it wasn't depression and it wasn't unhappiness, it was that goop. Because if you think about it, which most of us don't, when that caterpillar goes in, he has no idea that he literally becomes goop and then comes out a butterfly. So there's no coming out early, you're goopy mess. And I really don't think that if caterpillars understood that you are going in and you are literally going to completely dissolve into something completely different and have wings and come out, maybe they would be excited about the wings. But I don't really think, thank God they don't get it. Or maybe they do, but whatever. The point is, you go into a space that can be wildly challenging. And so you can discover who you are there or you can freeze. And a lot of people, the not knowing what the next step is can be so terrifying. The question I have while you were talking is I was wondering if you can help people with this. So you had known as you were growing in the corporate career, you had the satisfaction and excitement when you got the one promotion, but then you knew within a few weeks, okay, no, I'm looking for what's next. How did you distinguish, or was there a moment where you realized, okay, I know that I'm not supposed to be here in the corporate so much anymore. I feel a different sort of calling to something else, but how did you know that was actually different than I'm just shifting from, oh, I'm not satisfied here. I should be at a higher promotion to a distraction into, oh, maybe I just want to be higher over there. Was it a like a fulfilling talk about that? Because I think there are people right now who can completely resonate and relate to, I'm dissatisfied. I'm not happy here. So, will I be happy when I get to this other promotion I've been working towards, or if I stay here because I've committed and been here so long? Or I think it's important, or is that dissatisfaction I need to leave? There's something else better for me. For you, talk about that.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful.
Yes, that's a great question. And like to share a little bit more of that journey, because I think it would help when I was completing my chapter at Disney, because to me it became clear that wasn't aligned anymore.
Mhm.
I wanted to be like at a place where I could be my authentic self. Like what I started to feel was I didn't want to fit in anymore. I didn't want to hide. I didn't want to compromise. I didn't want it's as a woman, as a person of color growing up in corporate America, like I had to learn to be, to talk, to behave, to lead a certain way, to fit in like a mold.
Mhm.
For me,
Mhm.
it's like I no longer am okay with that. It became like a core values need that I need to be my authentic self. So at first my desire was I want to be all of me and for that
Mhm.
to be amazing, like in my expression. And I started to clarify what was the next thing that I wanted to experience. And at that time, I didn't have all of the pieces of what I wanted to do next. And I was the main breadwinner of my family. There were some real practical life considerations. I was like, I can't leave. I wasn't ready to leap into the full unknown, but I wanted to create a next chapter that was more aligned, a place where I felt like I could be me, I could do what I love, and I would have more freedom to then continue to create what I wanted to create on the side, to continue to play and explore like what
Mhm.
my gifts were, my passions, my purpose, my mission. I wanted to spend more time clarifying that. So it's almost like I wanted to go into a new place where I felt I could go through that journey. So I actually ended up leaving Disney and I went to Airbnb and
Mhm.
had an experience there. When I left Disney, I feel like I already knew corporate wasn't the long-term path
Mhm.
anymore.
Perfect.
And that was a huge part of my journey because since I was, I
Little.
don't know, 8, I thought that was my dream and my path, right? So I had to go through massive belief, identity transformation to even allow myself because a lot of it, I don't know, at least for me, when you're a high achieving person, you think you need to push through it, right? So
Mhm.
maybe you start to hear the calling or there's a restless, there's something here, but no, I just need to be tougher. I just need to push through it. I can do this.
Yes. Yeah.
And I felt pressure. Like I was one of the few women Hispanic leaders in the organizations I was in. And I had worked so hard to make
Yes.
progress. And if I leave now, what does that mean? And what am I doing? So, anyway, so there was just a lot of different things to unravel within me. But my first choice was what's the next chapter? Because I've come to realize I look back, I feel like our lives are just based on building blocks. They're just like mini chapters that come together right into a beautiful masterpiece. So
Yes.
it's like I don't need to know at this time like what the big thing is, but I know this isn't it any longer. So what is the next best chapter that I can step into that will allow me to continue to grow through my journey and unfold? So then when I am ready, when I feel like I have more of the pieces, I can take the bigger leap to leave corporate. But it's almost I already knew corporate wasn't it, but I wasn't fully ready yet. So I created this midterm
Yes. And in between, a
I
next
think it's
or
like a
like a
transition.
phasing out. This is so valuable for a lot of people. There's so many nuggets to what you just said. First, that I am no longer satisfied here. So I'm dissatisfied and unfulfilled. Do I push through it? Am I judging myself? Am I just, what's wrong with you? You belong here. This was the vision. This was the goal. I've put so many years into it. And I think for a lot of men, you have to shove that down. You're taught, you go, you get your education, you get your career, you stay there, you provide for your family, you retire. And I think for women, we do have a little bit more flexibility because we're dreamers, we're out there. So it is a little bit more open to think, I'm not satisfied here, maybe I could try something different. But what I like is so many of us, when we know we're not supposed to be here anymore, and if you have a dream of opening your own business or doing something that doesn't necessarily mean leaving one job to another job, most of us think I have to completely make the leap from the job to creating the business. But like you were saying, when you're financially responsible for your family, there's risk in that. And so some people do really well in that risk, in that jump, sink or swim. Some people are very activated by that. And then others it's really wise and creates more safety in their system to be able to say, all right, I am taking the step away from corporate and I'm actually stepping into something different that feels right while I still seek for the answers and the next phase of what's coming. And I think that it's so good to hear both stories. I think it's good to watch others who've done it both ways so that
Yeah.
you can, each person who hears this or watches it can get their own intuitive nudge on what
Yeah.
should be next. I'm the type that does well with safety, so it's no longer this career. Let me look for something else that continues to give me stability while I dream, or I'm the type who takes the leap, and in the leap, I'm going to rise. And I love that. I love the way yours went. Keep going.
Yes, and I love what you're saying because it's there's no one right path,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's actually the biggest unlock for me is I thought there's one path
Mm-hmm.
and I need to keep working hard to climb the ladder on this path. And it's
Yep.
like, wait a minute, they're limitless paths and I get to create it, right? So I feel it's to me, when I hear a lot of people start to say they're dissatisfied or unhappy, sometimes what I notice has happened is people want to move away from that. Is I don't like this, so I need to leave.
Mm-hmm.
What I always advise people, and what I've guided myself through it, is clarify what you desire next.
Yes.
It's like we're the conscious creators like of our lives. My dreams have changed dramatically, but it's still the same formula. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
Even though like I have evolved and the dreams have evolved with me, there is a piece of clarification. But even if it's not the full picture, is what do I desire next? What is it that I'm feeling called to? And allow the path to unfold because the truth is, even though I did create sort of this transition period, there came a time where I did have to leap because not everything is ever going to be laid out. And I feel like that often keeps a lot of people stuck because they're like, I don't have the full picture. I don't have the 10-step plan. I don't have any guarantees. So I'm just gonna stay here. I'm frozen, like, ah.
Yes.
And it's a combination, it was more about clarifying, activating like a lighthouse vision and following like my calling, my desires. Like I'm a generator, if anybody knows human design. So following like the sacral hits of what feels good, what feels juicy, and allowing the path to clear and clarify for me as I was moving. But it is unique and there is no one path for everybody, but I do feel like we know, like deep down we know. Like I sometimes women come to me, is I don't know, I'm in this place and I don't know. And the truth is we do know.
You.
It's just often we're afraid to connect to the truth that's already inside of us, the fear, the resistance, the doubt. But if we pierce through it and
Yes.
go straight to the heart, normally it's, oh my God, I do know.
And I think the key, one important thing that I should note is had you what you had just said about when we're dissatisfied and unhappy at a certain situation, whether a job, relationship, you do have to first recognize and deeply discover, is it me that is unsatisfied because I am unhappy and dissatisfied as a person? And I would take, because you take you everywhere you go. So
Yeah.
is it a dissatisfaction because of some things going on internally? Or is that a sign that there is something to move forward towards? And you clarify that first. And if there's work to be done, do the work. And then, so for me, dissatisfaction is normally it is time to move forward. And then you're right. Then it has to be, okay, I'm going to start taking these steps forward and I'm going to trust these nudges for me. I'm going to trust taking, because there is no, you were saying, no perfect 15 steps ahead, all lit for you perfectly. There will be no flaws. Just follow this golden little path to your perfect life. But what I've discovered over time, that you cannot possibly discover the best version of yourself unless you're willing to step into the unknown. The very best versions of us remain in the unknown. Otherwise, we know I remember Melanie had said it was one of the most powerful things I've ever heard her say. And I believe it was New Year's Eve, either 2020 or 2021. It was the first time she ran the final download. The final download, she says at the very end of it, she said, every one of us has met, and I'm not saying it word for word, but it was perfect. Every single one of us has met the mediocre versions of ourselves, but very few of us have chosen to meet the best versions of ourselves.
Mm.
And that hit me so hard
Yeah.
because there are very few people that choose to meet the best version of yourself. And you can choose that at any point in time. So I chose it really well for a while back then. And then, of course, I went back to the mediocre version of myself, but it was a new, higher level mediocre. And then I can choose again. I can decide today, I'm ready to meet the best version of myself. You don't know the best version of yourself yet, because the best version of you is the one that keeps elevating and keeps expanding. And I love that you were, okay, here's the next step. I'm going to follow it. And the next step, and the next step. And it's continually being brave. One other thing I wanted to point out, that when you have committed to this career and your whole family was invested in that, and then you were working towards this for years and years, and then, oh, I'm going to leave. I feel I need something different. So many of us could get stuck because we feel responsible for what everyone else did in supporting us because we were so clear on that dream for so long. And I know that there are people out there that we will let ourselves shrink the dream back down because we've invested so much time and we've rallied everyone into our dream. So there's this disappointment, or like you were saying, you were one of very few women and you'd worked so hard and you were a woman of color in this role. And that's a lot of responsibility to be like, thank you, I'm going to go there now. Thank you, goodbye. But that's why I love your story, is it will inspire people to think, even though she'd worked so hard and her whole family was on board and she literally left her country and she had these great careers at these great companies, she had the courage to continually follow that
Mm.
inspiration. So that's led you to where you are now. Talk about the work that you do now.
Mm. Yes. Well, first, thank you so much for sharing that. That is beautiful. And, what I realized is I didn't walk away from that. All those gifts, all of that experience, all that growth that I had the fortune of learning, it comes with me.
Yes,
It's with me.
yes,
That's why I like thinking about the building block analogy, because it's all coming with. And
yes.
to me, that was a big part of, I'm not being like reckless. It's like all of that comes, all of that gets to support what my next chapter is. And I get to now use those gifts to support other women to go through their journeys as well. So to share what I've been up to, and it was during that part of transition while I was still in corporate that I was doing a lot of work and activations within myself. Like you beautifully said, we take ourselves with us. So
Mhm.
I have poured the transformation into myself. And I remember my deep desire was to feel a greater connection to a mission, a purpose. Like,
Mm.
why am I here? Because to me, it was, my goodness, I've been working so hard to sell laundry detergent or theme park tickets, a place for you to stay in your vacation. And not that it's not important, but I feel like I'm here for something better or bigger or more meaningful. And what is that, So I remember
That's so funny to me. I've been
I
working
was,
so hard to sell laundry detergent.
yeah, like, why am I killing
Yes.
myself to do this? Wait a minute.
Oh, that was funny. That was great. Keep going.
Yes,
Sorry.
I remember I went to the first women's retreat with a coach first coach I was working with during this journey. And it was in this retreat that I experienced for the first time a download, a hit of what my mission was. And at the
Mm.
time, all it came through was to create a sisterhood of inspired and empowered women leaders. And the name Rising Women came with this. And this was, I want to say 2022. And I remember feeling the chills, body cry. And what does that mean? Like, okay, great, thank you. Like,
Okay,
what
now
the heck?
what?
What is that? And of course, the marketing brand person in me is trying to figure it out. And what I've realized, it's first, it was initiating me in my
Um,
own journey of rising into my power, my purpose, my potential. And when the pieces started to come together in the unfolding of that is when I started to feel this greater connection to what my mission is, what I'm here to do, who am I here to support. And that's what I've been doing since I left. I left corporate a year and a half ago. And it's been the most accelerated ascension journey I could ever have signed up for. Literally, like everything that needed to come up
mhm.
to be transformed, healed, alchemized has come up and it will continue to come up. And I feel now that I know more of me and I know more of my journey, I know my human design, I know these things, it has given me a greater lens of, okay, why am I journeying through all of this? Because I get to share everything that I have been learning to guide other women who basically the women that come into my world are high achieving women
Yes.
who have been working hard to achieve success in a certain way, normally in the corporate or professional fields, who are somewhere in their midlife journey of transformation, of
Mhm.
awakening, where we begin to ask ourselves, wait a minute, is this it?
Yes. Yeah. Wait. Is this is this it? In
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
yeah.
Wait.
And
Wait.
to not make that wrong, to your point, there's such a stigma on midlife crisis, and then we judge and then we shush it and then we like criticize ourselves. But actually, it's this, I feel like an invitation. And for me, there's no greater honor than to
Yes.
guide these women leaders because I fundamentally believe women are the ones who helped create the new earth. When
Mm.
I think about the women that I met throughout my life and career in corporate are incredible, amazing women with big heart, big dreams, big leadership, big visions. And I believe together we'll create monumental change. So how do we break free from the old paradigms and molds and
Yeah.
programs and shoots and really step up to create what we're here to create? And to me, there's nothing more exciting than to guide other women through the journey that I've been going through. As Melanie would say, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart, because
Mm.
together we'll create the new.
Okay, first, the midlife ascension. I hope everybody who hears that lets that anchor into your mind. We're no longer calling it a midlife crisis or a midlife anything negative. The midlife ascension, the real calling back into this is who I am, this is what I feel led to, and I'm going to rise into it. And then, what I also love about what you were saying with rising woman came to you, I've had two very powerful downloads in my life, and I didn't know what downloads were either. But the very first one is still to this day something I have never released, but I knew it was a vital part of my work. And then when the name of my brand came, The One Woman, I was like, no, I don't know what this is, but no, thank you. To me, it just felt too big to, I didn't even clearly understand it. I wasn't sure I wanted an online brand, but it was exactly what you were talking about. You receive this piece of information that is a part of your calling, a part of what you're supposed to be doing, and then you embody that. So some people get the download and they can act on it right away and they are ready for it, and that is what you're supposed to do. And then for others, it is this is what is coming for you. You will learn to embody this if you choose it. And then as you do that, through the good and the challenging parts, then it becomes this is part of your offering to the world. And I remember sitting with the one, it's been almost 5 years as that developed. And then over time, I remember there was one specific meditation where At the end of that, it was like, oh, not only are you going to have the one woman, but you're going to open the one foundation. And then within a year or two, it was, and you're going to have the one podcast. And at the time, I didn't listen to one podcast ever. I wasn't a podcaster. And so for me, my path has taken a lot longer, but there were elements dropping at certain points in time and a path that I needed to take to be the one to be ready for that. And I hope that people listen to this and consider, okay, where am I at in my action steps towards the things that I know I'm supposed to be doing? So if I have something on my mind that was clearly mine and I've received that, are there steps I should be taking today towards that inspired action? Or are there things that I could already be doing that I'm just a little bit afraid? I love the word ascension, the things that you could be choosing to rise today. And I loved that you clarified and made it even better and more specific about how you take you with you and how you weren't leaving all that behind. When you chose to leave those careers, you weren't leaving it behind. You were moving on to the next part of you, taking all of that with you. That was such a good reframe because it
Yeah.
is true. You leave a career, but you take everything that you learned and everything you became in doing so. And hopefully we leave those places better than when we came with such
Yeah.
gratitude with the and especially with the relationships you built there. Never burn a bridge with any relationships. I love the Rising
Oh,
Woman, the founder
thank
of the Rising Woman. Tell us a little bit how people can work with you. Yeah,
So I
tell
would
us
love to
about that.
connect if this feels exciting and you'd like to connect more. You can find me Tatiana Quaife on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
Instagram, and Facebook. I do have memberships called the Rising Women Sisterhood.
I
So
love
this was the original creation that like came through soon after the download that I received was I just want to build the community, right? Because as there are high achieving women going through this phase of transformation and transition, it can feel lonely. It can
Oh,
feel
definitely.
isolating, right? So just to be in connection, in circle, in sisterhood with other incredible women going through this journey has been profound. So that's the Rising Women Sisterhood. And I am launching the Midlife Ascension, which is the most sacred offering that I feel like I have created. It's really like a rite of passage journey for women who are feeling the calling of midlife to go through personal, professional, and spiritual transformation with a guide, a doula that
Yes.
has gone through this before and has guided other women through it too. So we can consciously create our next chapters in a way that is in alignment with our true, like authentic self. So I'm birthing that soon and it feels really exciting. And I just wanted to say thank you, Lisa, for inviting me to be part of this beautiful conversation. I love that you're sharing about the one woman and how that has inspired and initiated and activated yourself and these beautiful offerings that you see are going to come. I can sense it, I can feel it, I can connect with it. And what an honor to be alongside the woman that gets to
Mhm.
rise into being that, into
Yeah.
birth. It's such an honor. So thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this conversation
Oh,
today.
we talk about this almost on every episode that I am the one woman, but you are the one woman. Everybody who listens to this, you are the one. You are the only one that is your specific combination of your gifts and talents and quirks and everything that you desire and everything that you dream of. It all belongs to you. And there's only ever going to be one of you, no matter what. And so to me, it's so important that I discover and learn and rise into the best version of Lisa and that I support anyone around me to rise into the best version of themselves. And the best way to do that is to become and embody. And our uniqueness is key. I'm not meant to be like anybody else. You're not meant to be like anybody else. And I love the sisterhood of being around others who are walking that path. Because you're right, it is lonely. And there are so many women right now who will come across this and men who are sitting in a corporate career or a job that they thought was what they always wanted. And there is something inside saying, this is no longer it. And then how do I get brave enough to leave? And what's the path for me? And then where do I find support? Are there others out there like me that I could privately talk to about this, that I could associate with, that have been here, that have walked that path, or that are wanting to walk that path? And the midlife awakening, having a sisterhood, having someone to go to. And that's what's so great about mentorship and being a guide, is that you have lived it, you've walked it, you've taken those steps that make you brave, that make you qualified to lead others into doing so. And I think that's for everyone who's listening. The way you lead is by being the brave one. And it's not always easy, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. I love your story. Before we end, my favorite thing to ask everyone is to just sit for a second and looking at the person you are today and what you're thinking about for what's coming for you. How would you end this sentence? I am the one who.
Who is rising over and over again.
I love it. I think there's so much good ahead for what you are leading. Because I remember I've been in jobs that I was so afraid to leave and even really unhappy, knowing I should do something different, but not leaving because of what I thought everyone else would think or because everyone had supported me on that dream. So finding out who you are and letting yourself be you and in every way, I think it's great. This is so
Thank you
beautiful.
so much, Lisa.
Yes. Okay. Everyone, make sure you go and look her up. You can find her on so many different sites. And we will have links available, and you'll be able to find her on the One Podcast and the One YouTube channel. So thank you again. And for everyone listening, we will see you again soon on the One Podcast.